All right, get ready for a story that's going to send some shivers down your spine. It's a tale about a really simple guy, a terrible crime, and well, let's just say supernatural revenge that came after. This is the story of the ghost waffle seller. And really, that's the big question here, isn't it? What happens when a good soul, a truly simple person, is pushed so far that they come back from the dead just to get even? So before we can get to the ghost part of the story, you really have to understand the man he was before. And his life? It was about as simple and quiet as it gets. So let's meet Raghunath. This guy was the definition of humble, super hardworking. His whole life revolved around this little waffle cart he had, tucked away in a quiet, kind of lonely alley at the edge of the city. He wasn't making a ton of money, but he was happy. He was earning an honest living, and that was enough. See, for Raghunath, happiness wasn't about the cash in his pocket. It was all about one person, his wife, Shanti. She was, and I mean this literally, the center of his universe. Every single waffle he sold, every late night he spent at that cart, it was all for her. But you know how these stories go. This peaceful, simple life, it was about to be absolutely shattered. It all happened on one fateful Saturday night, a night that changed everything. So, picture this. Raghunath's packing up, probably thinking about getting home to Shanti, and that's when they roll up. Three well-known troublemakers, Vicky, Sanju, and Harry. They start demanding waffles, but Raghunath's done for the night. He's out of supplies. He politely tells them no, and that simple no is what sets off a firestorm of pure, violent rage. What happened in the next 10 minutes? It's just pure horror. These guys didn't just argue. They went straight to violence, a brutal, merciless beating. They didn't stop until Raghunath wasn't breathing anymore. And to cover their tracks, they tossed his body into an old well, and then they lit his cart, his entire livelihood, on fire. And you'd think that's the worst of it, but the injustice didn't stop there. The system that's supposed to deliver justice, it failed him, completely. The police barely looked into it, just stamped accident on the file and closed the case. And Shanti, she was left all alone, grieving for a husband whose body she couldn't even bury, with absolutely zero hope of ever seeing justice. Yeah, but here's the thing. Human justice and, let's call it supernatural justice, are two very different things. And about a month later, back in that same dark, quiet alley, something started to happen. Raghunath was back, but this wasn't the humble waffle seller anymore. No, this was something else, a powerful, terrifying spirit, fueled by one single all-consuming thing: revenge. So call it fate, call it karma, but Vicky and his friends find themselves driving through that exact same alley when, boom, their car gets a flat. And as they're standing there, annoyed, the smell starts to drift through the air. A sweet, buttery smell, the unmistakable scent of fresh waffles. And then, out of the darkness, they see it. The shape of a burnt cart. That's when a voice, a really chilling voice, echoes from the shadows, offering them exactly what they demanded a month ago. Yep, it was Raghunath, and he was ready to serve them their final meal. Harry completely panics, tries to bolt, but he's frozen in place, can't move a muscle. Raghunath's spirit just reaches out, touches his chest, and the guy is burned alive from the inside out. Then the ghost turns to Vicky and promises him he'll burn in the same kind of fire he used on the cart. And sure enough, the next morning, they find their bodies covered in these horrible square burn marks, almost like they'd been branded by a ghostly waffle iron. Okay, so that's 2 down, 1 to go. The final score was far from settled. Now the last guy, Sanju, he is absolutely terrified. He gets out of the city, runs as far as he can, and ends up hiding in this remote village up in the mountains. He literally locks himself in a tiny room, keeps the lights on 24/7, just hoping, praying that he can outrun a ghost. Spoiler alert, you can't outrun a ghost. So one night, a storm is raging outside, and that smell, that sweet smell of waffles, starts seeping under his locked door. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. A voice from the other side says it's time to pay his bill. Sanju's staring into the pitch-black room, and then 2 glowing red eyes just fade into view. And see, with Sanju, it was personal.
His sin wasn't just that he was there, it was that he enjoyed it. Raghunath's spirit calls him out on it, saying, "You were the smart one. You could have stopped them." But he didn't. Instead, he just stood there and laughed while they tortured him. His crime was pure, cold-hearted indifference. And with one last touch to Sanju's forehead, Raghunath's spirit just yanks his soul right out of his body. His empty shell just crumbles to the floor. The story says he looked like a dried-out waffle. His debt? Paid? In full. So, the last killer is gone. Raghunath's revenge is finally complete. But believe it or not, this story doesn't really end with death and violence. It actually ends with a sense of peace. His work done, Raghunath's spirit goes back to that alley, to the spot where his cart used to be, and he finds his wife, Shanti, there, still sitting there, still crying, still waiting for the husband who she knows is never, ever coming home. He couldn't show himself to her, not really, but she suddenly smells this sweet fragrance in the air. And right there on the ground in front of her, a small pile of old gold coins just appears. It was the money those goons stole from him. Then she hears a whisper on the wind saying, "No one will bother you now, Shanti. My score is settled." And you know, that alley isn't a scary place anymore. The legend says Raghunath's spirit is still there, but he's not an angry, vengeful ghost. He's transformed. He's become a guardian, a protector for all the hardworking, honest people, just like he used to be.
So what's the takeaway here? Well, it kind of shows that when human justice fails, sometimes justice finds another way. It's a pretty stark reminder that being cruel has consequences, consequences you just can't escape. And maybe the coolest part is how it suggests that even a spirit born from pure revenge can eventually find a new, better purpose, like protection. And that leaves us with one last thing to chew on, right? It's a fascinating question. When the system fails someone so completely, is this kind of supernatural revenge really monstrous? Or is it just another kind of justice? A more absolute kind? What do you think?